I don't trust NGOs, and I ran one. Now, it's important to state that there are some NGOs that I do trust. Hospice is one. St John Ambulance is another. And there are many other NGOs that are legit and doing what they set out to do. They have a clear purpose and they're fulfilling their obligations. You think about hospice. That's the place we go to when we're on our last days, and they make it comfortable for us before we pass over, and that is incredibly important. St John Ambulance, these services, they should get even more funding from the government because they're a necessity. We want ambulances to turn up if we ever are hurt or injured. So for me, those NGOs are completely legit. I started mine in 1994 to begin with a Kura Toa Trust. Kura Toa means warrior school, and through that I ran the Warrior Kids program. And with Warrior Kids I ran for 28 years, the running classes. So that was going into schools and running classes out in the community. During that time, I worked with thousands of children. At times I would be doing from 8 to 10 classes in schools every week. And in the evening, I would then do community classes. In the schools, there would be 16 students per class. And so the schools would contract me to come in. They would pick 16 students, sometimes it was more. Those students would stay with me for a period of 10 weeks with one class a week, and I would take them through the Warrior Kids program. At the end of that 10 weeks, a lot of the times the schools wanted me to continue, so they would choose another 16 students, and so on. Now, as you can imagine, over 28 years, that is a lot of kids going through Warrior Kids. In the community, it was a little bit different, so a lot of kids got to repeat. They would come back every term, so the school program was different to the community program. While they followed the same sort of format and featured the same activities, as you can imagine, the kids that have been coming to Warrior Kids in the community for a couple of years or more, they will be doing more in-depth and different stuff, more varied. The ones that are in school doing the 10-week program, well, that was more intense and followed a set program. At one point, I changed the name from Kura Toa to Families for Non-Violence. I was working with a lot of families that were coming out of situations where there had been family violence. So it was about making homes safe. Warrior Kids was far more than that, though. There was the children's version and the teenagers version. At other times I was running warrior classes for adults. It was all about making good choices. With the kids classes, you're looking at self-control and social skills. It covered a huge variety of life skills, such as communication, being able to address aggressive situations without losing it, looking at behaviour, changing behaviour, managing emotions, safe touching. So it was quite big in its scope, but it was all about the health and well-being of children and helping them to become warriors in life so that they have resilience and the confidence to go ahead and achieve, to do well at school, to do well at home, to do well in their future. The reason I don't trust a lot of NGOs is it's a huge amount of money that they are given a lot of the time from funding from taxpayers. With Warrior Kids, with my operation, in the whole 28 years of running it, I only ever received 6 months worth of funding. Typically that was from non-government organisations, groups that had been set up to distribute funds. People always say, how did you do it, Tim? How did you run this program for that length of time without funding? I wanted Warrior Kids to stand on its own, to be independent, not to rely on funding. Having worked for a number of different agencies, a number of NGOs over the years, I had seen how they relied so heavily on funding. There's a term that often gets used about grifting. I don't think a lot of NGOs can avoid that. They have to continue to explain their existence. They have to continue to explain the necessity for their existence and for why they need the funds. So they're always looking for data and statistics that serve their purpose. There could be conflicting data and statistics, research. They're not going to look at that. They're not going to bring that up. It's in their best interest to find information that supports their existence in order for them to get funding. So it becomes a grift. It can't help but become that. Especially right now, if you look out there, there's a lot of NGOs being challenged and questioned. Some are very secretive when it comes to the books and showing what they've been up to and where the money's been going and how much money they've had come in. And then you find out that the CEOs have been getting huge salaries. That's where the funding and the taxpayers' money is going to. That's always been the case. That has always been the case. I saw in the early days when I was working with trusts and different groups, I saw huge amounts of money coming in. And at times it would buy the CEO a car. So these issues are not new. They've been going for a very long time. It was happening around when I started my NGO. And I wanted mine to be different. Like I said, I wanted it to stand on its own 2 feet. For me, if it's worthy, it will exist. I had to do other jobs in order to run my classes. The accountant, I went to an accountant at one point because IRD, no matter what we do, IRD, the tax department, are always interested in what money's coming in, any money. They're interested in any money that's flowing. And I had no money coming in. The accountants called it a hobby. They called what I did a hobby because it didn't pay for itself. So I had to do other work in order to pay the bills, to keep the roof over the head of Warrior kids, if you like. Huge amount of kids coming through, but some of them, of course, did it for free because they didn't have any money, and I was okay with that. This for me was a purpose. I was out there trying to reach kids like me who had come through traumatic home lives to help them. I had wanted help as a kid in order to move beyond what I had grown up with, the violence and the abuse. I wanted to reach kids like me so that they had a better chance at a good future. And I did that. I've achieved that. So many kids. The program got so big. It did. It spread. So other agencies at one point I licensed them. They sort of licensed through me in order to run Warrior Kids in their communities. So yeah, we had it in Christchurch. Warrior Kids was in Dunedin, Reitahi, Tauranga, different parts of Auckland. So it was spreading. Well, some agencies did a really good job, and of course they accessed funding themselves to run those programs. I wasn't accessing funding, however they did in order to run it. While some of those agencies did a great job, others not so good. At one point I had a principal from a school contact me and said, "Hey Tim, you have a very good reputation. Your program has a really good name. You need to take it back from these different groups because they're damaging what you've built. They're not doing what you've done." Because I was running these classes, personally. That became the real strength of it, me. Because of my experiences and because of it being my dream, my purpose, the way I came to it, the way I approached each class, each child, each family, was in their best interest. I wasn't being paid a wage to be there. At times I wasn't being paid anything. I was there for the purpose. When I would go into schools, I would charge the schools. The school have a budget of what they spend on certain activities and programs that they can bring in from outside. And so I would contract to the school and charge the school. In those situations, then I could get paid. In the community, I got a lot of referrals. There were services that would pay for children. There were even businesses at times that would fund children through, and also other families would fund children through. So it all sort of worked out. A lot of faith, but also a lot of courage on my part, stubbornness, refusal to give up, refusal to fail. So yeah, I only took 6 months of funding. And that was in the early days too. That was early 2000s. And then that was it. I wasn't interested anymore. Sometimes funders would approach me, some funding bodies, and they'd get me to apply. And they said, "Nah, it's a sure thing, Tim. It's all good, mate. Just fill in this form, send it through. You've got a really good reputation, and we will fund you." They didn't. A lot of the funding bodies need a certain amount of NGOs to approach them, seeking funds to fulfill their existence, to fulfill their quotas. So funding bodies require a certain amount of groups to apply for funding through them in order to exist. If they don't get so many funders, then that brings into question their very presence. So they were desperate for so many to apply. As one funder pointed out to me in the early days, "Now Tim, you've been running Warrior Kids for a very long time without any financial assistance. If you don't get this funding, you're still going to continue to run the program, is that right?" I said, "Yeah." "So why should we fund you?" they said. "Why should we give you funding when you are going to do it no matter what happens? You are going to run these classes with no money, so you don't need funding." And that was the attitude. That was the attitude of the funders. Now, I'm not upset about that. I mean, another time, I had these very well-to-do funders come from down south. They came up. I've spoken about this before. And they were meeting different agencies, different NGOs in West Auckland, where I was based with the classes. And it was all meeting for funding applications. And so I met with them. Now what I did was I hired a little room. And it was like a storeroom. It had chairs and tables and all that. And I moved things around, made it look a bit, tidy. And so these very well-to-do ladies came, older ladies, and they came into this small space. I'd set it up. Originally it was an office, but it was on top of a cafe, and it was actually Rotary, West Auckland Rotary, Henderson. Or it might be Waitakere, I'm not sure which group it was, but it was Rotary anyway. They said that I could use this room that they had access to. It was above a cafe. So, thank you, yeah, I'll grab that opportunity. See, there was always other things being handed to me to support Warrior Kids outside of funding. So I was there with a friend of mine who came in support. I set up a nice table and chairs. These funders came in, they sat down. They were not impressed. They were not interested in handing over funds to me to run Warrior Kids. Didn't matter about the record or how many kids I'd worked with, how many schools I'd worked in, and how long I'd been going for. and the impact that the program had been having, the reach and the attention it had been getting in the media. For them, they said that basically I was a bad bet because I didn't have my own building. I didn't have my own premises. My argument to that was, well, if I have my own premises, then that's where any funding's going to go. I'm paying for those premises. I would rather it go to supporting kids through the program, paying for kids to be able to take part. So I didn't get funding. And that was when I started pulling back, it's like, no, I'm just not going to do it. As I was saying, there was an initial period before, from 1994 up to about 2000, where I just wasn't going for funding. I wasn't interested. Probably a lack of self-belief too in what I was doing then is why I didn't do it. And then around the 2000 mark, people were saying to me, Tim, you should get funding for what you're doing. So that's when I started looking into it. And after like I said, I only got 6 months worth overall, over a period of bits and pieces over a period of about a couple of years. I got fed up applying. Just the whole model just didn't seem to fit for me. It was grifting. I would have to find arguments and research and data to support the existence of worry kids. I didn't need that. I didn't need that. I didn't care what data or research or statistics told me. I understand the funders needed it, but for me personally, no, I didn't need it. I know the need. I know the need because I came through it. And all around me were kids and families that were going through it. I had one family come, and the kids were talking to me about the night before. They were hiding in a car and hiding all over the property because Dad was walking around with a gun. Dad was upset and he was walking around with a gun. That's just one account. I have so many stories like that about what families and children were going through. I didn't need data or research. I was dealing with what was coming to my class, what was coming to me. The families, their experiences, their hurt, their damaged pasts. I didn't need any data. It was there. So yes, no funding for me. So I don't trust these NGOs. A lot of them are grifting. They are not only grifting, they're pushing a certain political or social ideology. They're coming from those ideologies. That's part of the grift. And a lot of them aren't successful at what they're doing. We know this. It's been recorded. For example, look at the area of stopping violence. There's so many groups accessing funds to run programs for stopping violence. Yet, nothing's changed. And I'm talking about stopping violence in the home, family violence. It hasn't changed, it's got worse. Then there are other groups out there who talk about supporting children in these environments. Nothing's changed, yet they still exist. They still argue for their existence and gain huge amount of funding. Now, any other job, if you did not meet the requirements for your position, you would lose your job. If you did not fulfill your requirements, if you did not meet those expectations, you would lose your job. However, these funding groups, because they're coming from these political and social ideologies, and they're very loud and very vocal, they really fight for their existence. Yet they are failing us. It's like some of these ones too that research particular illnesses. How much money has been poured into them over the years? Same with ones fighting poverty. How much money has gone into them? Has anything changed? No. We keep being told it's worse. We are being told it is worse. Rather than saying, no, you don't deserve any funding because you did not fulfill your requirements, the government continues to hand over huge amounts of money. Now, there are good NGOs out there serving really good purposes and doing well. I'm not knocking them, I'm not having a go at them, but I do think the whole environment really needs some scrutiny. It needs to be scrutinised. People need to be held to account more, and they're not. They're not. These NGOs have aims and objectives, a purpose, obligations and requirements that they must fulfill in order to receive funding. Obligations and requirements that they must meet. Now again, I'm not talking about all NGOs here. I've been involved in a number over the years, not in any high position where I was being paid, and I've been involved in some really good NGOs. They fulfilled their commitment. They continue to do so. I could ramble off a whole list of good NGOs that I've worked with or have been involved with in some way, who are meeting their aims and objectives, their purpose. The NGOs that I don't trust are many that are involved in the social services sector. It seems to me their executives are doing very well and their pockets are getting lined with taxpayers' money. If your mission statement is to end poverty or to lift people out of poverty, to be an organisation that supports and helps the poor, how can you justify your executives earning exorbitant amounts, lining their pockets with taxpayers' money? There's also the social reward with governing an NGO. Status. You become a hero. Lauded, championed, held up. It's easy to see how that can go to executives' heads, thinking they're of the people, for the people. It wouldn't take long for them thinking that, yeah, I deserve this. I deserve more than this. The money that these NGOs receive are for meeting their purpose and objectives, right? Their aims and objectives. That is the requirement. Not to make executives or CEOs wealthy. Here in New Zealand, we have people in charge of NGOs that are supposedly addressing poverty, and yet these CEOs are living in very nice houses, enjoying that social status and living on incomes that the middle class could only dream of. Another reward with that social status for anybody involved in an NGO is that they are more likely to receive a New Zealand honour from the government if they have received funding from the government. In other words, no matter who's in power, make them look good, appear to be doing the work, and you will be rewarded. There are other NGOs too that are a cause for suspicion. Some of these ones involved in the environment or are seeking to address starvation and struggles in far-off lands. It's the same thing. How are their executives doing? Who's doing well out of this? How much money, how much of the donations, of the money collected for their causes actually reach the people that they are supposed to be helping? That's the question. Where does all that money go? So, yeah, I ran an NGO, like I said, for 28 years. Existed on that 6 months of funding. I had a lot of people come and look for jobs. I didn't get funding. I wasn't able to pay people. I could offer them training. They could take part. They can put that on their CV. But that wasn't my purpose. I wasn't looking to create a place that is about giving jobs to people. It was all about breaking cycles and helping people to move into a better life and to have a better future. Anyway, I just thought I would share that. It's a big topic. It's very topical. Has been for quite some time. I think it will continue to be so. If you're enjoying my content, please like, share and subscribe. Talk soon.